Hello, amazing ladies. How are you today? I'm just gonna check my tech, make sure everything's working. Facebook did something weird. I hope we're good. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm live in the right place here. If you're popping on, say hi. Let me know how it's going. Although I told myself I would never ask you guys to say hi or have to say anything on the live because I realized, and I'm huge with this when it comes to my program, I will never tell you to do something I don't do myself. And then I realized I come on live here and I tell you guys, say hi, let me know you're watching. And then I watch people's lives all the time and I am like quiet and I never say anything. So I've been changing that. So now I made a promise to myself that I would always say hi or leave a comment or something on someone's live so that I can come here and do my own lives and ask for you guys to say hi too, right? So no pressure. You don't have to say hi until I'm in full integrity with it. That's huge for me. I will not ask you to do that, but feel free to do it if you want. I will make sure I can see comments just in case. Okay, I see a comment box. I don't see anything in there. Hopefully it works because I did a live a little while back and this amazing woman was asking these questions and I'm just doing my live. I'm going about my business like I was in my own little bubble, completely unintentionally disregarding her questions. So I'll try not to do that today. So hello, thanks for watching. I'm so excited to be here. Okay, we're just gonna get started here. I'm gonna make sure everything's in the right place here. All right, so for those of you who are new to my world, who might not know me, my name is Mireille Thériault. I go by Mireille Nicole in my coaching practice. I'm a relationship coach for women, and I focus on guiding women towards their happily ever after relationship through better communication skills and by becoming absolutely magnetic. So I wanted to hop on today and talk to you guys about a few communication myths that I hear from a lot of women. And also talk a bit about my program, my new program coming out called Spoken Love. If you've been around for a while, if you've been reading my posts anytime between now and August 1st, I think when I announced it, you'll have heard me talk about it. So if it's something you've been interested in, you're kind of on the fence, you need more info, make sure to stay till the end and I will give you some more details and feel free to ask questions along the way. So I'm going to start with a funny story actually. I'm going to start with, this actually happened to me this week. So I was putting together all the information I have, all my knowledge, all the research I did, all the experiences I accumulated that I went through with my man to get my happily ever after relationship, right? For Spoken Love. I was putting this all together, collecting it. And well, for those of you who aren't familiar with my story so much, just in a nutshell, so I'm a divorced mom who is now remarried and a stepmom. And when I met my current husband, we started off with this fairy tale romance. But then, as it happens with a lot of us, right? Real life kicked in, really metaphorically punched us in the face, and the relationship got really, really challenging. So I'll leave it at that for now. But we managed to reignite the flame when I started using the approach that I teach. So that's just some background information. So I'm putting this all together and I'm going through my notes and I'm adding some of the notes that I have from a very well-known, respected, famous relationship expert. And a couple of pages in, this guy has a PhD, right? Okay, in this stuff. And he says, communication is not the royal road to marital success or something to that effect, something to that respect. And I was like, and he says something like, oh yeah, he says, it's a myth, something like it's a myth that communication is the be all end all. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Here I am launching a relationship program all about communication. And I'm launching it first before some of these other programs I'll be launching in the fall, because in my opinion, it kind of is, right? And all the other things he claims that are important, they all rely on communication. So to strengthen your friendship and anything, right? If you think of any aspect, anything you do in your relationship, right? Any activity you do with your husband, any interaction, you're going to need to talk. So for me personally, I stand by my opinion that improving your communication skills is the best starting point for 99.9% of you, okay? For all of us, right? So I want to take this opportunity today to bust a few myths about communication and relationships for you. So I hear a lot of them. And first, well, let's talk a bit about what communication is, right? So first, communication is more than simply talking. And this is obvious, but really, how often do you think of all aspects of communication when you're interacting with your man? Like, honestly, if you think about it, how often do you think about like the nonverbal, the verbal, what you're going to say, the approach, the timing, everything, right? Most of us react instead of respond when we're communicating in our relationships. And this was a big one for me when things were rocky in my love life. This was a big determining factor in turning things around for the better in our relationship, because masterful communication, it's more than talking, right? It's the vibe when you say it. So when you're talking in your relationship with your man, what's the mood like? How do you feel? How do you feel inside your body? How does he feel, right? Are you considering the other person also? Or are you just reacting from your own emotions? So masterful communications is also when you decide to say it, right? If you just say anything whenever, chances are it won't go over well. Okay, we want to be intentional. We want to be intentional with our timing. No more just blurting out whatever, whenever, right? Just to get it off our chest. Just because it feels uncomfortable, right? Just because you can't carry it around with you. Be intentional about that, okay? It's also the approach you take when you say it. We want to be intentional with how we go about saying it. So communication is an art, and I talk all about that in Spoken Love. The art, the way I've labeled it, I call it the Fem Voice Method, right? And it's the whole way to approach your conversations with your man, okay? So it's also about the specific words you use when you say it. A lot of times when we're just reacting, we're not really thinking of the words, right? Or we use the words that are in our head that no matter how nice of a person we are, right? Sometimes we have, nasty thoughts, right? Words are super powerful. And they can be damaging, right? They can be powerful both ways, in ways that are helpful to the relationship or in a way that are damaging. So choose them wisely, right? You don't ever want to put yourself in a position where you have to try to take back your words or what you said, right? People forgive, yes, people forgive, but people don't always forget. And that's not to say that, I don't want to say that and make you feel bad about everything you've ever said. I mean, me and my men, we've said things that we would have liked to take back, right, in a relationship. But now that we approach it with much more intention, that happens, right? That doesn't even happen anymore, I have to say. It doesn't even happen anymore, okay? So when you start being intentional about it, when you start considering the whole holistic approach, so to speak, to your relationship, right, things start changing, okay? So when you master this method, you stop being afraid, too, of what you say, what's on your mind, and asking for what you need. So like I said earlier, I call it the Fem Voice Method, so you would have seen that, if you've been following me these last few weeks, okay? And like I said, when you master this, that's when the fear goes away. Like, I know when things were rocky in our relationship, there were a lot of things I wanted to say, but I didn't know how to say them. I was scared to say them because every time I said something, I would like dig a deeper hole, or I would say something wrong and it would make him defensive, and things would get worse, right? But when you use this method, you stop being afraid to say what's on your mind because you know how to say it. You know the right way to say it. I hate to use the word right, but for you to get the drift, right? The proper or the most optimal, I can use a big fancy word to say it, but at the end of the day, it's just the right way to say it to get the result that you're looking for, okay? And it really helps you out also ask for what you need. That's something us women, we really struggle with, asking for what we need for so many different reasons. I did a video on that a while ago. About asking, communicating and asking for what you need, and the reasons why us as women, for so many different reasons, we're scared to ask for what we need. But when you have this powerful approach to it, that's when the fear goes away. That's when the confidence builds in, okay? You stop holding back and you start speaking with confidence in your relationship. You've got your power back. Or maybe the issue for you is not fear, but you're just not getting anywhere in your conversations with your man, right? And then when you start to communicate in a more productive way, in a more empowering way, that's when you see that what you're saying is actually, you're going to get a response to it. It's not just going to be like, okay, I'm talking to a wall here. Is it registering? What's he thinking about? Like, he's like on another planet, right? So the fear goes away, and also it becomes a lot more productive, and it's more of an exchange, right? You guys are both checked in. It's not your partner is checked out, all right? And you also get to speak in a way that allows for more intimacy and a stronger bond in your relationship, okay? Instead of a way that makes him defensive or shuts him down, because men will do that, right? Depending on how the exchange is, how the interaction is, men have a tendency, and this is not just your man if that's an issue in a relationship, this is like all men in general, and I hate to generalize, but I'll talk a bit about that later. There are certain anthropological roles that we've taken on over the evolution of time, that although our brains and our minds and our perceptions have evolved, we still have a lot of animal instincts. So the more you understand those, the more you don't resist, you just work with them, and we can evolve out of them, the more harmonious your relationship is going to be. So is this landing with you? Let me know. I don't see any comments. I don't know if my comments are working. It's like a blank white screen down there, so I'll check every now and then, but I'm not going to worry about it. Is any of this resonating? Can you relate to some of this? Have you experienced some of this? Okay, so let's go through a few more myths. And the first one is one that I hear all the time from so many women, okay? And I used to believe this too, right? And me and my husband, boyfriend at the time, did a lot of this, trying to resolve our relationship issues. And that is the myth that you need to talk more. All right? There's definitely some truth to that, but more is not always better. Okay, so like I said earlier, you could just be digging a deeper hole for yourself. If you're not using the right skills, approach, techniques, right? You can unfortunately make it worse if you're not careful or intentional, right? Or what you do end up saying starts getting used against you. And an example I like to use for this is with children. So for those of you who are parents, maybe you've been in this situation, right? Where your kid asks you for something and then you're like, no, sorry, I can't do this. No, unfortunately. Okay. Or they get a response that they don't like. Let's just paint it that way. It's a response they don't like. So then they start asking why. They're trying to get you to talk more. Okay, and then what starts happening is that then you start getting defensive, you start kind of explaining, over explaining, and then, at the end of the day, you start talking yourself out of the response you initially gave, right? They start like winning, I have to use that term also, but they start winning this exchange and you feel like, oh, okay, right? You're giving too much information, then they can use it against you. Oh, you're saying no now, but 2 weeks ago you said yes. And you're like, oh yeah, but that, blah, 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 blah. And then you can't even justify what you originally said, right? You get yourself stuck and caught up in this, over talking. So just keep that in mind, right? And other examples too, right? Think of exercise. It's not always about exercising more. There's this whole trend about high intensity workout, right? More isn't, sometimes less is more. And that can be very powerful. And maybe a bit of a silly example, right? Eating more chocolate cake, it's not better. It'll just make you sick or feel bad. So whatever example you relate to, the point I'm trying to make here is that you don't need to focus necessarily on talking more. You want to talk better at the end of the day. Oh, I can see comments. Hi, Jermaine. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was ignoring you last time. Remember that? Remember when I was ignoring you unintentionally? So now I get to say hi. Thank you so much for letting me know you're here. So we need to get beyond this mindset that we just need to talk more and it'll be better. All right, so the second myth, I've said a few more than two, but this next myth is you should be able to say whatever's on your mind. You should be able to say whatever's on your mind. So obviously you want to express what's on your mind, but we really want to think before we talk again. So this isn't about holding back or not fully expressing ourselves, right? I just mean, again, let's be intentional, right? I mean, don't just think about, let me start this over. You want to express what's on your mind, but we want to think before we talk, right? And I don't just mean, think about, before you talk, think about what you would want him to say to you. Men and women are different. I alluded to that a bit earlier on. And the faster we can work with that, the faster we can see shifts in our relationship, right? Like this was a really hard pill for me personally to swallow. And even when I teach this, even when I coach women through this, I kind of still feel like, I still feel it a bit, right? Like there's a feminist side to me, obviously. And this whole, equality and whatnot going on. This is a tough one, but as soon as I started working with this a little bit more and saw it more from an empowering perspective, the better things got, right? Better things got. We still have certain roles in the relationship, and there's certain, actually, like if you look at the science and the research, there are certain ways that we interact that actually trigger different hormones in our body, right? You've got men who thrive off testosterone, and then us with estrogen, and certain interactions and certain ways that you approach the relationship are actually going to release chemicals, right, in our bodies. So part of it is actually also still nature. We haven't excuse me, we haven't biologically necessarily evolved to that level. So just keep in mind, I'm just telling you this so that you become open-minded about that, okay? So also consider what your man needs to hear based on what I just told you, right? Based on him seeing things differently, men valuing different things, right, than women, okay? And also before you say something, before you just say whatever's on your mind, also think of the impact of the other person. And that's going to be beneficial to you in any relationship, right? Not just your romantic relationship. It's not about just, necessarily just saying what's on your mind. Consider the other person at the same time. Okay, and this last one is my favorite. My favorite in the sense that it's the one I dislike the most, right? Maybe you can relate to this. I've been guilty of this in the past myself. And it's the whole idea of he should know, right? He should know how I'm feeling. He should know what I need. Maybe you've told him a million times, right? Have we all been there? What? I shouldn't have to tell him. This whole idea of mind readers, right? Okay, look, men are not mind readers. Like I said, maybe you've said it a million times, but how have you said it? And I don't say that to make it sound like it's your fault, right? I'm not saying it's your fault or my fault or whoever's fault, but we always get to look at the role we play in our relationship, in the dynamic. And that's actually a very empowering concept, right? To think that we don't have a role in the relationship, in the conversation and whatnot is actually really disempowering and really discouraging, right? Because then you're just, things happen to you by chance. When you see that you have a role, or by circumstance, when you see your power, then you're no longer feeling like a victim of your circumstances, right? And this is actually such a powerful concept. This is a concept that's used, right, in addiction also, right? This whole concept of family roles, families with that that have addiction, right, in them, in that dynamic. And even just any dysfunctional relationship, and I'm sure all levels of relationships see kind of this concept in one way or another, but this whole idea of the drama, maybe you've heard of the drama triangle, right? Again, concepts where people have a different role in the interaction. I mean, when it comes to addiction, like the most famous role you'll think of, right, is the enabler. We've all heard of that, okay? So same thing in relationships. There are different roles that we have a role, and think of that in an empowering way, okay? And anyways, honestly, what's the point of you wanting to be a mind reader anyways, right? You're just setting yourself for potential disappointment. You're better off assuming he can't read your mind, and then be pleasantly surprised if and when he does. Okay, then to set yourself up the other way around. And I would say, I would go take it further than that and say, if you're in a position where you're expecting him to do something, there's probably something going on where you're not feeling love from him, and you're looking for this to happen, for him to read your mind, to know that he truly loves you. And there are some much more, I don't want to say the word good, there are other ways that you can do that to see that how much he loves you. Other ways, instead of putting him in a position where he kind of is supposed to know, or has to guess, or has to remember. Because if the conversations aren't going, smoothly in your relationships, if there's tension, he's probably feeling, like fight or flight to a certain extent. And you know that as soon as you're in fight or flight, then, your memory goes, like your mind goes blank and everything. You're like on high alert, and you're just not functioning the way you should, right? So there are much, much better ways to see that. So I invite you, if you've done that, if you do that, to really reflect on that, see where that is coming from. And like I've said before, if you just leave it to him, to remember or to figure out what you need without telling him because you expect him to read your mind or to know, or you guys have been together for so long now, he should know. Who holds all the power in that dynamic? Who holds all the power? Right? I want you to take your power back in your love life, in every aspect of life here, but we're talking about your love life, okay? And here's what I also want for you at the same time. I want you to be able to have the difficult conversations with your man, okay? To be able to talk about anything you desire, no holding back, except when you're being intentional with your words, like I said earlier, of course. I want you to feel confident in your approach, okay? To know how to do this in a way that strengthens your bond and makes you magnetic. Okay, because a lot of times too, when people find that, the flame's dying in the relationship or things aren't going good in the bedroom, they're looking for all these tricks in these books and whatnot, where at the end of the day, right, communication, even in that respect, has a lot to do with it, right? In terms of making things romantic, turning you on, turning you off, right? It's all in what we say, right? So I want you to feel good about your communications. I don't want you to stress about it, not to worry about it. When you have these tools, that's when you feel empowered, right? And there's a way to do this. Like I said, right? There's a way to do this and you can become really good at it. Communications, again, is like anything else. You get the skills and you practice them over time. And the more you do them, the easier it gets and the more results you get also at the end of the day. All right. So that's why I'm so excited to be launching this program for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about spoken love. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, keep watching. If you're not, I love you anyways. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. So for those of you who want to know a bit more about my program, like I said, I've been posting about it all over. It's not done yet because we start August 24th. So that, I believe, is next Wednesday. And it's a 4-week group container, and you're going to learn how to be a confident and master communicator in romantic relationships. All the stuff we've talked about today and more, we're going to talk about in a lot greater detail. You're going to gain a totally new perspective also on arguments and difficult conversations and why they can be a good thing and how to make them a good thing, right? How to approach them in the most productive way. So I have to say, my man and I had a lot of those, especially, before we got married, right? When things were a bit rocky in our relationship, we had a lot of those disagreements. And I have to say now, not that I look forward to them and not that we disagree as much anymore, but I know exactly how to handle them. And each time we get through them, we get stronger on the other side, right? Whereas when things weren't going so good between us, what would happen is that we would argue. Often we would argue about the same things over and over again. And after the argument, even though we kind of gave up and snapped out of it and kept going, we didn't feel stronger on the other side. It was the other way around, okay? So all the stuff I'm going to teach you in this program is going to be rooted not only in my own experience, but like I said, in research and science, okay? And I share what I've experienced, what has worked for me. If ever I feel there's something beneficial that I've learned that I haven't quite implemented in my love life, I will let you know, right? I'll let you know this is also an approach I've read about it or learned about, but I haven't implemented. So at least you know, right? Different things will work on different people. So I don't mind sharing that in case you need to try it, if it sounds good for you. So last thing I wanted to say, and I shared about this, I talked about this in my story yesterday, is I realized that romantic relationships, your love life is a very vulnerable area, very sensitive area of our lives, right? So I realized that some of us may be quiet in my live videos, or you might be on the fence about joining our program or even getting support, right? Any type of support, because it's almost like admitting, right? It's like you're admitting to the universe that something is feeling off in your relationship and maybe you don't want to jinx it, or maybe joining a program or getting support for your love life, it triggers these feelings inside of you or a story inside of your head that it means you're going to have to make some changes, and maybe those changes are scary and you don't feel ready to take them, or you're scared, maybe your relationship is really just hanging on by a thread, and you're even scared that even if you change something, that's gonna destroy it. But there's the other side, right? What if getting support, getting the skills, joining in a program would give you the knowledge to make it go the other way, right? To make it better, to bring it back to what it was. And I feel really strongly about this and reigniting the flame, because I've experienced it myself. You know, for a long time, things were rocky with my husband. I never thought we were going to get married. And when I started using these techniques, you know, he got down on one knee, and it didn't take that long, you know, after going through all of that. So obviously everyone's experience is going to be different, but I mean, I've been living proof of it. So if you have any further questions, let me know in the DMs. Like I said, you get to decide what tools you're going to do, what level of involvement you're going to take in your life after you get support on this, and you just take it from there, right? You do you share. I know it's hard sometimes to share about these things. You don't have to talk in the program. You can just listen to the information, or if you want some guidance and you don't want to talk about it in front of everyone, you just send me a message in the DMs and I'll address it that way. So, all right, I'm just going to recap and then I'm going to let you go finish your day. So communication, remember, is about more than just talking, and it's about more than just talking more, right? And it's about more than just saying what you have to say on your mind, right? There's a whole art to it, and there's the Fem Voice Method to it. So if you want to be a better communicator in your relationship, if this is something you and your man struggle with, I feel you, then Spoken Love is definitely the program for you. Just reach out in the DMs, or I'm going to put a link somewhere here, either in the video description or in the comments. So check it out. And I'm going to end it here. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you ladies next time. Take care.